Hello and welcome. On behalf of Geekdom and the Texas Business Hall of Fame, I'd like to welcome everyone today to our town hall conversation, The Next Normal, Workplace Flexibility with the founder and CEO of Vari, Jason McCann. Now, before we get further into our introductions, I'd like to take a moment and thank our wonderful sponsors, Geekdom, a collaborative co-working space in downtown San Antonio that helps build the next generation of entrepreneurs and startups. And of course, as always, the Texas Business Hall of Fame for hosting our conversation today. We couldn't do this without you. Thank you very much. Also, a very quick housekeeping comment here for our audience members. You are all automatically placed on mute. I know that's not fair, but through the power of Zoom, we can do that. So if you have a question, please utilize that wonderful Q&A feature. I'm going to be monitoring that to my left, your right. So you might see me kind of dash over to the side a little bit. But please submit your questions and thoughts there. And I'm going to do my hardest to be able to sprinkle some of those questions, feedback, and thoughts into this conversation today. So with all of that out of the way now, it's my sincere pleasure to introduce you to the founder and CEO of Vari, Mr. Jason McCann.
Hey, Dax, thank you so much for having me. Very excited to have a great conversation today and hopefully power through this crazy moment in time and inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs.
Excellent. That's exactly what we're here to do today. And I think based on COVID-19, we're going to have plenty to talk about, right? What I would hope to do right now, if you don't mind, Jason, is I'd love it if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit of an introduction to yourself and kind of who you are and what you've done thus far to our audience, and then we can kick off the conversation from there.
Yeah, I'll hopefully pull the Steve Jobs and try to connect some of these dots backwards. You know, I grew up in Galveston, so my wife and I are from the island and grew up there. And so the first entrepreneur I knew was my mom. She owned her own hair salon on 61st Street. And so at 8, 9, 10 years old, the first job was working for mom, sleeping in the salon. And she said, we've got to go out and get a job at some point, go do your own thing. And so lucky enough to find a beach chair and umbrella company that took me in, and as a teenager, and for $20 a day, I used to set up chairs and umbrellas, and got the bug of saying, well, I want to open up my own. So I leased my own beach. I bought chairs and umbrellas from a company out of Florida and shipped them in. And suddenly we were off and running and had a little tiny beach company back in the day, and thought that was incredible. And growing up on the island, it was tourism. So when the oil economy was tough and Galveston was boarded up, it was like, oh, but when tourism was good, like I just envisioned, I thought I wanted, because that was the world I knew, to be in the hotel restaurant industry. And so I looked at universities, and U of H had the hotel restaurant program, the Hilton College there, and had a chance to go to school there, and hustled through trying to graduate as fast as possible, really so I could go make money. So I graduated fast in about 3 years and waited tables at Chili's and Papado and did some other fun things there. But had a chance to open up a restaurant and nightclub, partnered with Mike Dean down in Galveston. We opened up a Yaga's reggae bar and restaurant right there on Richmond Avenue next to Sam's Boat. It's now a car wash, I think, is the latest. But we did that for about 2.5 years, and I learned about owning and operating a business and running a company. But I also recognized the hotel industry or the restaurant industry wasn't my calling. And so I was like, what am I going to do? So I sold out to our partners. I hadn't made any money, really. I was sitting in that sort of, what is the next phase? And U of H was kicking off their MBA programs with the entrepreneurship studies over there. It was in the early phases of what's grown into an incredible entrepreneurship program. I said, I need to learn more finance. I need to learn more marketing. I need to broaden my skill set. So jumped into U of H, started working on that, but I also need to make money because I didn't have much money. And so my fiance and I were working through all of that. And at the time, one of my former employees owed me money. One of my doormen, it was a regular customer, and he paid me back in POGs, which I think that was 1993 there, roughly. So the POG craze was happening. 1995. So and we sold POGs. And so suddenly when he paid me back so fast, I was like, what are POGs? I don't know anything about them. And suddenly I've got cargo trucks driving all over Texas, selling gift card shops and sporting goods companies and the little baseball card trading shops, POGs. And so I just started to figure out what is distribution and could I create a kids game? We created a kids game which was combining tiddlywinks with Pogs, and we launched our own game. And one of the companies in Houston was DSI Toys. And so in that how do I sell Walmart and Toys R Us, learning all these things, I ran into Rick Knights, who was the president of DSI Toys right there at I-10 and Beltway. And he said, Pogs are dead. You're about to lose your ass. Get out of this thing and come work here. And I was like, no, Pogs are fine. And literally I walked out that day. I couldn't sell another Pog to save my life. Like, it literally was a fad. And I didn't understand how fads worked. And so I sold it for what I could. And I called Rick up and I said, I'll do any job you have. Rick took me under wing and said, I said, I've got to finish my MBA. And he took me under wing, and I got to go to Asia and negotiate. We sold, walkie-talkies and stuff to toys, to the toy companies. And I learned sales and how to sell Walmart and grew up in that. And in 1990, we went through an IPO. And so I got to experience being a publicly traded company and worked my way up from the warehouse and analyst and intern to head of marketing for the boys' toy line. So running a $50 million business. I was like, but I want to start something new. And I met a gentleman named Dan Flaherty, who had founded an amazing company here in Dallas called Gemmy Industries that nobody's heard of. But today, Gemmy creates all those inflatables you see on people's yards for Halloween and Christmas. We did the singing big mouth Billy Bass fish back in 2000. So in 1999, when Dan and I met, he said, I've got an idea for a .com. Let's sell Christmas and Halloween product online. And so I said, sure, why not? I didn't know anything about .com business. I didn't know anything about Christmas or Halloween, but I just knew I was ready. And so we did it. And we built, like every other .com business out there, this crazy .com called iCelebrate.com, selling Christmas and Halloween product in the era of the .com gold rush. And so suddenly I spent time raising capital and talking to private equity and angel. And all of a sudden, as a CEO, I realized leading this small growing company from no employees, I think we had about 75, we're doing millions of dollars in sales. And I hit I'm like spending all my time raising money because I hadn't built a profitable business model. And I'm sitting up in New York City I just finished a meeting with JP Morgan. I'm trying to raise money and they say, you realize the .com thing's bust, it's over. And my heart sank. And I came home and I had to tell my team we couldn't raise any more money. I built an unprofitable business model, great culture. And I had to, while I was the first employee to open the doors and raise capital, I was then the last employee, and we unwound the business. So it's a pretty low period from my standpoint. I had a 6-month-old kid, and you go bust and you learn a lot about yourself. And so Dan had the year of Big Mouth Billy Bass Fish, and he said, hey, would you help me at Gemmy? And so Dan and I had become, when you lose a lot of money with somebody, you really see what you're made of. And so we had lost so much money together, but he on his other business had been very successful, and he knew I had these entrepreneurial thoughts. So Dan and I went and I fell in love with Christmas and Halloween, and we kicked off the inflatable business. LED lighting is now the biggest category for Gemmy. Became president in 2009 of Dan's company, and we have become very, very close friends. And then we get to 2012, and Dan all of a sudden is having back pain and standing in a cardboard box.
Wow. That is a bona fide Texas entrepreneur story. You cover, coming from the beach and the island, getting into international sales, oil and gas, everything. That's what's exciting about having these kinds of conversations. And I'm really happy to be sharing this because in my opinion, in hearing that story and the reading and kind of research I've done on you and what you've done at Vari, it's interesting because I don't think that we can have the conversation of the future of workspaces and what that means in kind of this post-COVID-19 world without actually understanding a little bit of the story of where you just left off, which is like absolutely perfect. Everything that you've done, the roller coaster ride of entrepreneurship, it sounds like there were some really wonderful highs, learning a lot, and then the lows and the realities of entrepreneur life. That is amazing that you have that kind of optimism and drive to kind of see your way through it. And I would really, really like to pick up on this cardboard box, Dan having a bad back or a hurt back, and what kind of happened. Can you share with us the story of VariDesk and the founding of that and the impetus of the business from that standpoint?
Yeah, I think as you know, being president of Dan's company and him standing there at that box, and I kept walking in and saying, "What's wrong? You know, what's going on?" So I feel better when I stand up, and so I've got this cardboard box that I went to my doctor, and she said, "Well, if you feel better standing up, then stand up." And it basically was sciatic nerve pain. And as we started to go through, he said, I need to buy a standing desk. So Rosemary, our assistant's ordering standing desks for Dan. We couldn't find one. These crazy things would show up and we're trying to bolt them to his desk. And it was just kind of a joke. Every 6 or 8 weeks, a new box would show up. And one time it was this $3,000 desk. We couldn't even figure out how to make it. It just sat there and the team took 8 hours to build this thing. And Dan said, I got an idea for a product. And I just hired this amazing industrial designer, David, to help us create some other products for Jemmy. And I grabbed David and the three of us sat there and Dan described it and David started drawing it and it gave birth to what become what now over 3 million people use is the original VariDesk. And we were flying over to Asia. We're sharing a paper and passing this Wall Street Journal. And so it's almost like a sign from God that we're sitting there because we don't typically fly together. And in the Wall Street Journal, Dr. Levine from the Mayo Clinic says, sitting is the new smoking. So suddenly you take this friction point that Dan's having this pain and we're now hitting this opportunity as well as we love to create product and we're on to something. And so we start to show companies and here in Dallas, we showed Verizon was one of our customers. They're literally in Irving over there. We showed the Container Store headquarters and they became early fans of the product and they gave us feedback and we sat in those meetings and listened. I didn't know what an ergonomist was. I didn't understand what sitting and smoking meant to healthcare and as the recruiting and retaining talent and healthcare costs. Like we started figuring out we're onto something here. And then we entered in and we said, we're going to sell it like furniture. I don't know anything about the furniture industry. We're going to sell it like furniture. Well, the furniture industry, when you get in it, operates like the automotive industry. It's a handful of manufacturers and they sell through dealers by brands you've never heard of. And so we tried to sell through dealers and it was painful. We said, all right, we don't want to do another .com, but let's do another .com. So we put a $99 website up. We put $10 a day on Google Ads and it starts working. We place an ad in Sky Mall magazine almost on a whim, and we become the #1 selling item in Sky Mall's history. We are off and running. And so in 2013, we spin off the company, and suddenly we're going from shipping 1 or 2 a day, and we're like, oh my God, $1,000 a day to shipping $10,000 a day, 20,000. It's an incredible flywheel effect that comes in. And what I realize is we now have a direct relationship with fans. They're emailing us, putting us reviews. They're writing, I love my VariDesk on there. I realize they're not customers, they're fans. And if we build this relationship with our fan base, we can go on their entire career journey with them. So they said, do you have anti-fatigue mats? I'm standing on concrete. We're like, no. So I did R&D the old fashioned way. I went on Amazon and I said, what are they bundling our product with? And I bought everybody else's anti-fatigue mat. And said, are we gonna take other people's product and sell it through our e-commerce web store? And my David Patton goes, I can create a better mat. And at Jemmy, we're the largest producer of pumpkins in the world for Michael's Craft Store. So we're like, well, we can make anything. So we start making mats and become the #1 selling anti-fatigue mat. And then people are sending us pictures saying, I'm trying to get monitor arms to lift up my monitors. Can you come up with a better monitor arm? We said, sure, why not? So we do that. And then suddenly we're off and running. And so this idea and these friction points, we're starting to monetize pain because everybody's having pain and trying to figure these things out. We start to create better and better product ideas, listening to our customers, and it started us on this incredible journey. And when we were running out of space, because we were sitting inside of flex space inside of Jemmy, just kind of, my team was growing to 50 or 60 people, run out of restrooms and parking spots, we got to move out. So we move across the street to a whole other building. And as we're walking in, we're like, what else could we do? So we suddenly say, let's do full electric desks. And at the time, it was a little bit like there's all these other great companies that have been making electric desks. Why are we going to enter a new category? And I was thinking to Steve Jobs going, well, he didn't invent the MP3 player, but he did make the best one out there when the iPod and everything started launching. So we took apart everybody else's electric desks. We can build a better desk. Why not? And suddenly we're one of the largest sellers of desks in the world. And so we're sitting here continuing to listen to this fan base, but I also learned lessons like, I got to get profitable. So once we had the product and we were selling it direct and profitable, it was like, okay, I don't have to raise money. I'm going to figure out how to build this business without it. how do we get the culture right and the people right? So it's like, how do you look at great companies like Southwest Airlines and the Containers, all these great organizations? Like, let's get the people and the culture right. And let's really think about, could we build an incredible brand new company out there? And that's what we're starting to do.
That's fantastic. And you know, what's interesting about that innovation is you look at the very first clear cut thing, which is, hey, anti-fatigue mats, let's see who's doing it well. And maybe we make this easy on ourselves. But it just seems like time and time again, the team that you had assembled around you were saying, no, 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 I can build that better. We can actually do that better here because we care, we're focused. And, you know, that type of camaraderie and teamwork is rare. And it's like lightning in a bottle when you pair that with an amazing product and workspace. And it seems like culture just played a huge part in the growth of that audience engagement and relationship. Can you talk to me a little bit about what culture and those values that you look for in team members, and you know, what inspired all of that to kind of create the workplace culture that really allowed that innovation to flourish?
Yeah, I think about it, as you think about a company in those 0 to 50 employees, 10 employees, the culture is you. You're hiring people that complement you, they embody your personal values. And that works because you're interviewing everybody, you know everything about them. And as we start to grow, we got to about 120 people, and I didn't quite know everybody's name. I didn't get to do all the interviews. And I was challenged to really define our core values. And I had read all these great books and, oh yeah, you write down your values, but we hadn't taken the time because, like every business, we're running as fast as we can. We took the time. I brought in a consultant to help me who was doing some leadership training for me for my young team, because my average team member age was 27 at the time. And she helped us define our 6 core values. And it was through an interview process of 17 different people that worked inside the company. But she said, you've been living these core values since you started. So it's create lifelong fans, how to be a team player, raise the bar, believe it's possible. Starting, all these things came to the top. And so I sat down with all 120 employees in groups of 10, and we were like, these are our core values. And when you think about it, by hiring people that embody those core values, they then add to the DNA and the fabric of the organization. So at 120, 150 people, really focusing on defining it, that becomes the culture of your organization. So it's beyond what the CEO in the leadership is. It now is its own living, breathing thing. It's hard to define, but you feel it when you walk in. And so we did little things, you know, you say, hey, we have team building events and celebrate all these things. But as we continue to add members to it, everybody embodies our values and they add to it. And culture things like when you walk into the space, I always define it as like the energy of a space. And I learned this back in the hospitality days, but you walk into like a Shangri-La hotel and you feel it. Well, I said, I want the people at the front to greet you, whether you're coming into work that day, whether you're coming in on a tour to see our headquarters, so we're going to do business, whether you're interviewing for a job, I want the people to have that service mentality. And so that became it, putting music in the lobby, putting scent machines throughout the space, all these little things that we started to learn add to the pieces of the culture, because it's all about the energy of the space and the people and getting that right. And as we've now challenged ourselves, and I've got team members in 7 different cities, I've got over 350 employees, the next challenges are, how do you continue to push that culture throughout and push that into these decentralized markets and bring them along on the journey? And so those are all things as we're going through our next phases of growth that we're learning. But I do believe it all gets down to those core values and hiring people to them, and then they start to add to it. You really dial it in and get it right.
Yeah. You know, exporting culture is one of the hardest things that companies have to kind of contend with. It's easy to do it when you're under one roof, but when you are able to kind of create the substations and the satellite offices and people can travel freely between offices and feel like they're at home, that's when you're on to something really special. And it sounds like that's something that you've really tapped into. And I will say, the moment you started talking about culture, the Q&A kind of like lit up. So there was one question actually I wanted to ask you that I thought was really, really great, which was, you know, in speaking about the culture, did the culture come first and that propelled you to greater levels of profitability and success, you know, with the team? Or was that established kind of post-success and you recognized it as the main ingredient of it?
I think about it. It initially starts with you as the leader of the company. You are the culture of that organization. So the sheer will that entrepreneurs drive businesses, that is that entrepreneurial fire and culture that you're creating. You're hiring people with similar values that complement you. That gets you to that phase. The next phase, foundationally, as you think about propelling your growth, you're now, how do you systemize it so that everybody gets the history of the organization that wasn't here 7 or 8 years ago, that understands how we got here? Do they embody these values? Sharing those up front so you weed out anybody that you don't want inside the firewalls here of your organization. That continues the foundation for the next phase of growth. But I think you've got to be resolute in continuing to get the culture right. And it evolves over time as you add team members to it, but as long as it's built upon those core values, that foundation allows your business to accelerate and propel. And I think for me, what I've described to my team members and everybody that's talked to me, I said, I want to build a company that can live beyond my lifetime. Like I want a shot to be one of the big brands out there. So I'm 50 now. So when my chapter ends, whenever that is, I want this to be a living, breathing thing that can now propel beyond just me as the CEO or the leader of the company.
And that vision and drive allows for that delegation to happen, the sharing of the experience and knowing that at some point the reins get transitioned and the brand expands and all that other stuff. And I'm really excited to touch on that a little bit later in our conversation about expanding the brand and what it means so it has some life and scale and livability beyond 50 is very young. You're going to be here for a very long time. Let's be clear about that first. But, one other question that I'd love to kind of ask here is, I understand the importance of culture. And from what I understand and gathered, even the space that you're standing in right now has some cultural importance in terms of communication and engagement with your team. Can you share with us kind of what happens right there in that space where you're standing and what you think that means to the success of Vari?
Yeah, I always think about space and trying to balance that and getting that, because the purpose of a workspace is really collaboration, communication, culture, all those things happen within it. And I think about space as being totally flexible and changing as business needs change. And so we always think about, even you see the walls behind me, everything is designed to move because your business doesn't go like this. You may get some hockey stick moments, but the reality is it's a continual grind, and you have successes, you have failures, learning moments, you're continuing to power through. And so as you think about space and your business needs change, so if you're in technology today and they're working in these agile frameworks and they're on 2-week sprints and they're deploying things and they got war rooms set up, but then 3 months from now they're on to different tasks, or 2 weeks from now they're on to different tasks. How come spaces have got sheetrock and the energy's wrong and it doesn't work for them? Like, how do you think about space being very purposeful when you design it, but then allow it to morph and change just like you as a person do? And so it becomes a living, breathing, growing, changing thing as your business needs ebb and flow. And so we've been very particular about learning. And I always say this is an ideation lab in a showroom. So I want clients to walk in here and feel it. And when they walk in and they feel it, if it's not for them, and that's perfectly fine, and there's plenty of companies out there to take care of them, but when they walk in, we'll do these tours and people are coming through and we're starting to show, and we're learning. So we put lights and we're just learning how everything works. And then we get that feedback, and that I can turn into product ideas. And a lot of people end up at the end of the tour and they're like, are you guys hiring? What's going on? Because you also think about it, everybody's in the culture, we're trying to recruit and retain amazing talent. And so I need everybody. I can't do this alone. And so I tell my team, I'm like, this is what we do. And so every touch point that we have with somebody, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's coming into the space, getting those subtle details right. We started off early on, at the lobby when you walk into space is a coffee bar. So you almost open the front door and you have no idea where you've just been transported to. It almost feels like you've entered a really cool Starbucks. And that was designed as a collision point. So visitors, guests, new employees, I'm interviewing you, like I make sure that we want to do business together, and it all happens right there. Also at the time, by having only one coffee bar, it forced everybody in the company to meet. So as you think about the way when Steve Jobs designed the new headquarters, they limited the number of restrooms and cafes and stuff, because as companies grow, the human interaction piece that happens, those collision points, And today they may happen on Zoom and MS Teams a lot more, but those human interactions are the synergies and where the sparks happen, where you create the next big thing. And so having those collision points, having these moments here to capture, and just continue to celebrate it. So you celebrate your values. So once you define what those values are, lean into those and celebrate them. So if you've got to be a team player is one of your values, it's like celebrate it. So if Katie or somebody's done a great job, celebrate that moment in the way you talk and just lean everything back to that. And it really allows your business to scale as your needs change.
Yeah, and impact through design and focused, right, intent, having collisions and having those things happen. Those are the things that sometimes get glossed over when you're in growth mode. They just you just scale beyond it, or you kind of forget to go back and talk about what actually needs to happen. And I don't want to step too much on what my future question will be, right, later in our conversation. But, right now you bring up a very relevant point. You want intentional, happy collisions to happen throughout your workspace. How are you managing that right now, kind of in COVID-19 times with remote work? Are there things in place that you're kind of thinking or working on that will help lend itself to still doing those things, even though folks are remote, or, blended time in the office?
Yeah, the good news was when we started the company, I went 100% laptop day one, just in case we lost power, because Coppell's always building around here. So there's a brownout, we could run to Starbucks and still have voice over IP and operate. So we had set up an emergency response team just in case something happened. And we had already set up things in practice and almost treated them like fire drills. So when the COVID initially happened, it took us about 4 hours and 95% of my team was working remote. And so it separated, we learned. And I didn't realize, like all of you, how long it was gonna be. And so we pivoted our business to work from home. And so I emailed all my team members and we surveyed, what do you need from home to be successful? And then we had all these other organizations say, hey, I can't work on the kitchen table for the next 3 months here. What's going on? So suddenly we started, and our backbone is e-commerce. We just started shipping product to thousands and thousands of people, tens of thousands now, that have all using work from home initiatives. And then as everybody was out, so we were considered an essential business. So there was about 10 of us here in this 80,000 square foot headquarters. I said, what are we gonna do? So while everybody's out, I had my designers come in and say, what is distance space design gonna look like? We reached out to our counterparts in Asia. They were about 10 weeks ahead of us. And we had already been through temperature scans and H1N1 SARS all overseas. I was very used to it. I said, what are y'all seeing? Plexiglass, distance space design. So I started testing all those things. We started doing our own temperature checks at the time for the 10 of us coming into the office. And then we bought a system called EZO from the Taipei 101. They used it to track hundreds of people checking their temperatures all through. We said, let's tweak all these things. So when my team is ready to come back, again, we're an ideation learning space. What are those things? So that single point collision coffee bar, I added a second coffee bar and I spread out everything. And we started doing all single servings instead of the big creamer jars like Starbucks. And we said, no more pumps over there to make your latte. You're going to have to do the creamers. We were already wearing masks. So we said masks will be mandatory for guests and all that. And basically when the CDC guidelines came out in May, we were following all of them already because we were 10 weeks ahead learning what Asia had done in these other cities. The other thing is because our space is totally flexible, my teams went in and we just moved all the furniture. Our power drops from the ceiling. So you picture like a maker space, like in an auto body shop. But that's how our power is done because one, it saves money, but two, it's flexible. So we designed these spaces. We just moved everything. And then we started rolling the teams back in like all of you, 25% at a time. We introduced some new products. We did some 3D printed handbars that we could hook on all the handles so you don't have to touch a handle. If you're a total germ freak, you can use your arm bar. We took plexiglass panels, per CDC guide, we started cutting them out 24 by 30 inches. Now we're selling them. We've sold 10,000 of them, I think. Yeah, it's crazy. So you start to also take these opportunities to monetize if you need to, but also lean in. We didn't have to furlough, didn't have to lay off. What I told the team was, it reminded me of a conversation I had with a friend 15 years ago. We surged into a rallying cry. I said, we have got to keep rowing until the wind catches our sails. This storm will pass. We can survive it if we lean into our values, if we lead with empathy and love, if we learn and we're transparent. Like what do we learn? We reached out to all of our customers. How do we help you transform your spaces for free? I just said, I'll come do it for free. Like, let me just help you because we can all learn faster together, share those ideas, and really help our economy and this ecosystem of entrepreneurship kick back in so that everybody's going. So my team's been 100% since June 1. We have a few that are still for personal reasons not, but we said we're going to be on the front of it. We're going to figure it out. I'm wearing masks all the time. We were air freighting them originally. We're making them, selling them. It's like we're not selling them, but giving them to our team members. And then it's just like, this is how we learn. And we're going to figure out how to take care of our employees first. But I've got to get the health of the employees and the safety right. But I've also got to get the health of the business right. Because if I don't have a business, I don't have any of the employees. So it's a balance there. And we shifted into a mode where I set this up so I could do a weekly all company Zoom for all 350 employees. I started daily emails. What was on my mind? What's going on? Like, I didn't know either, but I just said, I'm going to say whatever's on my mind. And they could email me directly and call me at home. And we're powering through this chapter together. And so the space and the teams are coming back. They're 6 foot distance. We literally changed a bunch of spaces last night because we're just learning the traffic flow patterns. We added more of our quick flex walls to the space. And now we're doing it for other clients all over the country. And we're helping. And that's our way. But it ultimately is also a business thing. It's good for business. So taking care of the employees, leading with empathy and love, communicating and over communicating, get that rallying cry, which that's ours of, keep rowing till the wind catches our sails. And every once in a while I feel a little breeze, but I remind them we are still in the storm. We got to get through this. We got to help a lot of people out there. We've donated $400,000 worth of product to nonprofit organizations, to school kids that got home and didn't have a desk and they're sitting on carpet or a floor and they didn't have a desk. So my team reached out to the communities and said, how do we help these teachers that don't have a marker board at home? We just started shipping them. I said, we can help. It's like, find ways to serve others. And I think everything will work out. And I think that's the chapter we're in right now.
I think we are about to have a huge influx of applicants over to Vari. So you should let your talent acquisition team know.
We are hiring, so come on, join us.
Yeah, perfect. There you go. You're hiring.
25 open positions, so join me. Let's do this.
That might
we're hiring. We're hiring through the storm. We're not firing. So
that might be the soundbite of the conversation right there. There's going to be a lot of people excited about that. You brought up some really interesting things about, it's just very clear you lead from the front and you bring everyone along with you. And that is, in my opinion, a very refreshing style of leadership, especially in something that could be considered as staid as, furniture manufacturing. If you think of the very broadest of industries, you really do bring this interesting perspective and vision to what you're doing with your employee engagement, with your audience and customer engagement. I would love to know, and I think the audience would like to know, what and who influenced you during those kind of formative years where you were learning and kind of grinding out the entrepreneur guidance, you going through the .com crash and everything else. Who were some of the influences that you kind of pull from, whether it's books or thought leaders or just fellow peers? Can you share some of those names or maybe books so that folks can kind of get caught up a little bit?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think about, I love to read about business books, and I was not a reader until literally college. And so to get into the business books are the ones in the autobiographies of businesses and listening to their struggles. But it was good to great, sort of got the foundational thing kicked off for me way back when. But as we started to dream about what could we do here, I said, Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh is all about that customer experiencing, looking what the Amazon book on Jeff Bezos and they're shipping everything or selling everything, whatever. But it was like, okay, they're powering through some stuff. Looking at other business models, the way that Southwest Airlines and Container Store, other great organizations really had large companies with incredible cultures. So the Nuts book, and I was like, okay, how did they maintain that culture and leading on that? You also look at what I believe are timeless business models. So everyday value, the way that Sam, and it's made in the USA. So the way Sam built Walmart, the way Jim Sinegal built Costco, the way Jack Bogle built Vanguard, all of that, those components there from a timeless standpoint, because the furniture industry, which I didn't know anything about, is all fake. It's all opaque. It's terrible how they price stuff to all of us. So it's this list and discounts like the old car days and all these rebates back. So it's not the right way. I said the era of transparency and authenticity isn't going anywhere. Amazon's proven that out. So also just thinking about all these great business models that are out there, and could you layer all of those in, and could we build a brand like a Starbucks, like a Walmart, like a Southwest? Could we build one of those great brands out there, all based upon all these other companies that I think each get their element right? Could I combine all of them into VariDesk, which is now Vari? And that's where we started on that journey, was only by chasing, because the idea of couponing, when you go to Bed Bath & Beyond and obviously JCPenney, it's tough because you're negotiating with the counter person going, I forgot my 20% off coupon. Like, the couponing doesn't work either. Yeah. So how do you have this transparent relationship with the customer base? And all these other great businesses that I think the mighty ones that are still standing right now are built upon something like that. And so I've just been stealing all those ideas and putting them into, how do we get this right? And that becomes the ecosystem of what we're building here in an industry, you're right, that I don't know anything about, the furniture industry. So I'm 8 years in, and there's people that know but I know about workspace and culture. And so we've transformed our vision to, instead of saying we're going to create happier, healthier, more productive workspaces, which was kind of our first idea, to we're creating workspaces that elevate people. Because I do believe that the workspace can elevate cultures and transform. And that's how we think about workspace. And it can be anywhere. So the seamless integration with your home, school, classrooms that we do standing desks for, the integration of the future of work, like all of that is built, but it's all these other great businesses that you can mirror your business on as you're dreaming up your business, that you can steal from and learn from and see the mighty titans that are still there after 10 years or 20 years or 50 years. Because you look at what Apple did for design, so that's one of our benchmarks, but also in their day when Samsung came in and really started stealing market share from Apple, I said, I'm not smart enough to be what Steve Jobs is building in Apple. I don't think I could just create one product and sell billions of dollars worth. I'm probably a little closer to Samsung, where I've got a few options. But those two are other benchmarks. So taking all those great companies, I think you could build an amazing business out there, especially in the craziness of today's climate. There's going to be great opportunities that are going to be out there for everybody.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's always wonderful idea to go and look to the other industries and leaders, see what they've done, and borrow and bring to your own, but then make it your own, right? Inside of your industry or inside of your model. And you've obviously done that to great effect. So congratulations on that. Clearly those things seeped in. And I am also the byproduct of a few of those books that you mentioned. The Good to Great was huge. I worked a lot in the tech space, and that was something that was a big rallying cry for our corporate culture at Rackspace, and ultimately what shifted over to Geekdom, one of our sponsors. One of the things that you were kind of touching on that I thought was really interesting and is just a very natural segue into one of my next questions, which is, when you are successful, it's very easy for your customers or for a market to put you in a box and to not let you out of that box. And you have to work very, very hard to get out of it. And it sounds as if you've gone from the original VariDesk and getting into the mats and now getting into the workspace themselves. You've done something that a lot of businesses have not been able to do, which is successfully expand your brand and basically create that next level of identity that allows for that brand to breathe. Can you talk to us a little bit about the process of going from VariDesk to Vari, and really what that stands for and what that means as the direction of the company moves forward?
Yeah, I think we recognize things have a life cycle. And so you've got to challenge yourself and really leapfrog from an innovation standpoint. So that innovate or die. But I always look at it like, if you're not innovating and challenging yourself to elevate, somebody else is. They're all coming. So you might as well do it yourself. And so as we added the products, it made sense. And about several years ago, people would walk in and they said, I want this. And they were describing the energy of the space and the soft seating and all the products that we were launching. And they would say, why are you called VariDesk? You're much more than a desk. And I was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? We're the #1 recognized brand in office furniture, VariDesk. Nobody's heard of the other brands out there. What are we going to do? So we went to the company that helped Federal Express become FedEx. And we reached out to them and some other agencies and said, can you help us? Like, what could we do? Do we need to come with a whole new name? Or could we become Vari? And they did 18 months worth of work with us, and we prepped and researched and talked to everyone. When we showed the name Vari to our current fans, they said, oh, that's so flexibility, change. Like, yes, it's an embodiment of the spirit of cultures that you're helping transform. When we showed it to people that hadn't bought product from us, they said, oh, it can be technology, it's flexibility. It's like there was positive vibes. So we said, what are we going to do with it? But we didn't want to toss out the idea of even the cardboard box where we started. So when they went through the process with the logo, that's why they put a little box on the eye above it. It was just these little subtle details that the marketing geniuses came up with. And we said, okay. So it took us another 6 months to prep for it. We said in February, we're going to rip this Band-Aid. We're going to launch a new TV campaign, and we're going to go out to the world and drop VariDesk and become Vari. And just pre-COVID, we invested millions of dollars and said, we are coming out, we're selling office furniture, and we're going for it. And we hit the market with our multi-million-dollar TV campaign, and it was incredible. Like traffic, people searching for Vari, it worked. They embraced us. COVID hits, and we have to, in a 72-hour period, shift our marketing, our TV, to say, we're now Vari, but we're work from home for you, for those that are trying to get through the storm. And the agencies were great, and the team worked tirelessly to pivot. And now we're pivoting back to say, when you're ready to come back for the next normal and new normal, we're here to serve you as Vari. And it's now, in my mind, we have a shot to be really one of the great brands out there, and really aligns with everything that we're doing around creating these workspaces to elevate people.
And having that agility is so key, especially right now, right? In terms of going from office space, everyone thinks that's a special place to do it, versus I can't get one of those in my house. It's like, no, now you need one in your house. It's really clear. Yeah, Jason, thank you so much for answering my questions. I feel like I've been very selfish with my time here and kind of leading the conversation. So now, if you don't mind, what I'd love to do is share a few conversations from our audience in our Q&A.
Awesome.
And I'd love to kick it off with a question from Veronica. And her question was, do you see apps collaborating with office space equipment to further close the loop on wellness? And she gave an example, something as if like Headspace, the meditation mindfulness app, being able to connect with a standing desk user to initiate a mental break. Hey, you've been working, 2 hours, take 10 minutes, do a walk or do a mindfulness exercise. Do you see some of those things starting to collaborate and overlap?
Yeah, so I think we take Headspace, Mindspace, all that's very important. We always take our walls and create like Zen rooms, so you can drop in when you do need to unplug for a little bit. We had created an app back in 2013 that was sort of a pre-version of what she's describing there, but there's a lot of different companies that have their own way, and everybody's kind of got their own vibe to it. So we've sort of let the super technology pieces chase that part of it, and we focused on the worlds of furniture, but I absolutely see it all colliding. So whether you're a part of Sharma's 5 a.m. club and you're dropping in to get sort of those 3 things done before you kick off your day as a leader, or you're thinking about your culture, and I have to remind them to take their paid time off. We give a week of volunteer time off for all of our employees. So to focus and get those times back so that you're giving back and helping, because it does recharge all of us to get ready for the next chapter that we're going through. And so I think it's all a piece of it, and technology, I think, will continue to play a role in that. I think we've all learned the power of what MS Teams can be, and Zoom, and the next Zoom, and the next MS Teams, but all of those things are going to continue as we try to simplify our lives so that we can really focus on the things that we want to get done.
Excellent. Yeah, those apps and that interactivity and interplay, I agree, I think are going to be really interesting the next 2-3 years. Even with VR and AR, I think there's going to be some really interesting things to do at your desk, wherever it may be, right?
Yep.
There's another question that we had from Clayton that I've been looking at, and I think is a wonderful question. It kind of rewinds our conversation a bit, but his question centered around, for new product ideas that are in the earliest stages of development, and coupled with obviously the limited capital and resources that can be invested there, how do you approach the initial design and testing and manufacturing of those kind of small run R&D products? Is that something that the team has done? Do you outsource? Do you partner? If you might, shed a little light inside of the peek inside the R&D, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, so I have a team now here as well as in Taiwan, a little bit in China that are doing R&D so we can do it 24 hours a day. We do a lot of our production in Asia. I've got 9 distribution centers across the world shipping product in 30 countries every day. So we're a global supply chain. But the raw idea, when we have it, the teams are concepting it out. And we were outsourcing the 3D printing of it or building a prototype of it into a shop, or David would do it in his shop sometimes. And now we've built a prototype shop here. So I got a full-on maker space, 3D printers running. I think we have 5 of them, 4 or 5 of them back there. And then we outsource if we need other projects. And if we don't have an expertise or maybe a specific electrical engineering component, mechanical engineering that we can't quite figure out, we'll lean on people that's what they do. And so we work with other firms to help us figure out some things that may be super too technical for us to do. But a lot of it is carving foam, carving the wood, standing on it. You know, for the mats, I got a bunch of people's mats, and then David was just cutting foam. And we're like, this feels pretty good. Let's try this. And we just start, and you just start, and you show it to people. The hardest thing I think for entrepreneurs is we have this idea, and we're almost afraid to show the baby to anybody because they're all going to just go after it. And, you know, nobody wants to lose the kid, but sometimes they don't make it. That's just how it works. So these raw ideas, you've got to get that feedback. Somebody told me early on, they said, if you can get a small group of people to love something, a lot of people could like it. But if the small group only likes it, it's dead. Like, it's never going to be big. So I really focus. I'm on all those early sales calls too in the sales meetings, getting that raw feedback. My team is now. We aggregate all the reviews. I think we get 300 reviews a day right now from people. We take that data, and Remy's back there figured out what we've got and what are they not liking, what are they liking. Like, we're trying to, when I toured Google, I'm like, they're aggregating all this data. So I need the data side, from a quantitative standpoint, but I need the qualitative. So David and I were showing, and now the other team members are showing these product ideas, and we're close. And I can tell when people like it. Like, you can feel it. And but I like to watch it when I'm not selling it. Like, the product has to stand alone. And so if they get it, then I know we're close. And then we think about the experience of opening the box. What's it like? Is it easy to assemble? We like everything. We joke that IKEA is the worst Saturday of your life. So we want everything to be less than 5-minute assembly. So now anybody, you can build it yourself, or we have teams that'll do it for you all over the country. And so it's like, that's how you learn. And so now we're doing free space plan design for our clients, and we get to watch what works. And then we say, if it doesn't work, we'll come in and change your space for you. So it's bigger than a product idea, because once you get into a space and you're like, nobody uses this conference room, what do we do with it? Like, we think about space as a service now, going, we can think of it much bigger than just a product. So it's all these iterations of learning. I think you can catapult your business, but it's one idea at a time, and it's really making sure they love it so that a lot of people can like it.
Excellent. There's another question that also came in here. We're getting quite a few. So people are really enjoying the conversation and your answers here. The question was actually relating to your time and in your going through your MBA at Bauer College. How much of those skills and tools and mindset development do you rely on today, or have you kind of leaned back on as your new tool belt as you've made some of these decisions to partner and grow and scale and kind of navigate Vari to the point it is today? How important was that to you, and what's maybe the most important tool that you've learned during that time?
Well, it's when you start touching all those basics about hitting the battlefield. I remember us building we had a coffee model in our marketing class. How do we build a coffee shop? And once you get the model right, can you scale it? And how do you scale it? Little things like that. I remember the owner of Texas Tamale came in, a McKinsey consultant that had bought into that, and he was presenting. So bringing those real life CEOs and entrepreneurs into the conversation have inspired me. I remember when Mattress Mac came and talked, and he kept saying, hey, the reason I haven't expanded outside of Houston is because I'm going to own it. I'm going to be the #1 in the world right here per square foot. And all those real life experiences on top of the modeling, blending all that is really the things that I lean back on today and go, those are those elements there that you take, just like reading a great book, or all the dots that you connect backwards that all start to make sense. I go to the hospitality. I didn't realize I didn't want to be in the hospitality industry, but I am in the hospitality. The convergence of hospitality and workspace, and my internship down at Disney, taking all those little details about being on stage versus behind stage is all how we think about the services that we offer here at Vari and now VariSpace, our other business. So just thinking about all those things, but it's all leaning back to those nuggets that you have and those interactions you have at class or with fraternity brothers or sorority. You know, it's all those things I think that you lean back on. And it was fun. I got to drop into Keith Rasson. He's one of the professors down there in the entrepreneurship program. Tap in and do a class with a group that's gone virtual this semester and they're about to graduate to go, hey, these collision points and friction that you're seeing right there, if you have a passion, that's the spark of the idea where you could really create the next big thing. See what pain is out there that you can go and monetize that you're passionate about, because there's a lot going on out there right now. And so I think those are some great things that are still coming out of the program, which is obviously much bigger than when I was there.
You know, it really does sound the culmination and finding a way to mix those things together. That really does describe the hallmark kind of characteristic of what you did during those times to grow, but also it sounds like what VariDesk and what became Vari is today. It's this culmination of input and feedback and looking outside your own industry to understand your real place. And you said something there that I think is really, really interesting, which is, you know, the fact that you were in the hospitality business. It's this desk and these things are around you all the time. They should feel welcoming. They should be center stage and make you feel this level of comfort the same way your favorite restaurant or your favorite entertaining spot would be, right? You know, your bar or, you know, whatever it might be. That's such an interesting perspective that I can't say it enough. The style and vision that you're having here and what you're bringing to the table, it's no question why you guys have found the success that you have. And Jason, as we wind our time down here, what I would also like to do is basically just have one other question for you, if you don't mind. We're going to go in the way back machine, speaking of our college and kind of the MBA program and everything else. I'm calling Doc Brown. We're getting into DeLorean and we're going back. And I would love to hear a little bit about what it was like to be hand selected by the Texas Business Hall of Fame directors for one of their cash prizes very early in your career as part of their kind of future business leaders and entrepreneurs. And I believe it was back in 1996, they awarded you a $5,000 prize. And during our earlier conversation, you mentioned being a broke college kid, entrepreneur. $5,000 was like winning the lottery, a veritable jackpot. What was the importance to you in not just the prize money, but in actual essence, the validation of being recognized by something so esteemed as the Texas Business Hall of Fame and their community leaders giving you that prize? Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I think, I had exited the restaurant business. I'm trying to sell Pogs. It's unwinding. I'm like, interning, trying to figure that. And I'm broke. And my wife we're getting married that year. And I was like, not going to, I'm doing the credit card scam on Citibank because they give you the free t-shirt when you start getting over there back in the day, just to make it all work. And I'm out of money. And they have this scholarship come up. I'm reading all about it. I'm like, oh my God, I got a shot. And I sat in the interview with the woman that came in. And it was an incredible conversation. I just remember going through that conversation. I believe she said that Dell Corporation sponsored it that year. And I was like, oh my God. It was one of those. And I was sitting there, I was like, okay, I'm not going to the biggest business college out there. I'm not. And I was like, I don't even know if I have a shot, and I'm just going to go for it and see. Cause I'd heard they were going to all the top business schools all over the state. I was like, I don't know what we rank. And I had this conversation. And to find out I won, and it was like, and $5,000 was the world. And it got us, I didn't have to freak out about finishing college, and I get to go to the awards event and sit with all those other great recipients of it and realize that there was somebody. And I said, I've got to do that. I got to continue to live my life serving others and bringing up the next generation of entrepreneurs. You've got to find a way to help them. So in any which way you can to do the give back, to do the talks, to help people inspire and find those things, because those donations, that seed takes that pressure off and allows somebody to create. So we've given away almost $4 million in the last 3 years to nonprofit organizations all over the world. And so for us to be able to, but those are the seedlings and ideas that are planted when you're in high school or college, and from people like me that are giving back. So I was so grateful, and it was fun to prep for this and to reminisce. I was talking to my wife over the weekend. She's like, "Do you remember that night?" Like, and it was an emotional conversation, because she's like, we were like at the bottom, and it was like it happened. And so it was, so thank you to whomever the group was that did that for me. That was a great thing, great moment.
Jason, on behalf of the audience and myself, thank you for sharing this insight, your stories, future of Workspace. I think there's some really, really exciting things on the horizon for Vari and what you're going to be doing to change the working lives of so many people around the world. I would also like to thank again our sponsors, Geekdom and the Texas Business Hall of Fame, for allowing us to host this conversation. Thank you everyone for attending. Jason, thank you so much for the conversation. It was wonderful getting to know you, and we look forward to hearing more about the future success of Vari.
Awesome. And again, if y'all are ever in the Dallas area and you want to come tour and feel the energy, we've got 2 VariSpace locations. We have almost 1 million square feet here in Dallas. You can book it online and come email me, jason.mccann@vari.com, and just come see us and come experience it. I'd love to learn with you and help you on your journeys as well. I'm so grateful to the sponsors, and we'll help out our friends in San Antonio, because all these spaces that are creating spaces for entrepreneurs, it's ultimately the lifeblood and ecosystem for our economy and to get everything going globally. So it'll be a great thing to give back and serve.
Fantastic. I love it. Vari is hiring 25 open roles, amazing culture and place
Join
to
us.
work.
Come fight the good fight. Get over here. We need you all over. Multiple cities, not just in Dallas. So come see us.
Fantastic.
Right, thanks
you so
everybody.
much, Jason.
I appreciate it. All right. Thank you.